So, and I think that it's very important, the connection between the mountains, the three mountains, and the shamans and the culture that is all around it. So it's called the Valley of the Dawn, and the Valley of the Dawn is the begin where the uh, civilization began, right? So it's the beginning of time, is where the mountain, Imbambura, the masculine mountain, the powerful mountain, uh, came about. And in opposite of it, we have Kotakachi. And Kotakachi is the feminine energy mountain, and has a very significant shape in the shape of the breast of a woman. The masculine energy is very rugged, very strong, powerful mountain. And then next to it, there is Mohanda.
Yeah,
When they also call it Mohandita, like in a very charming way. And between all these three mountains, you have uh, you have the energy of the Andes, of the Andes shamans, in a way that they draw that power. So if we talk about the Tamayos, or if you talk about the Pinedas, or if you're talking about Maria Juana and all of other shamans over there, they are all very deeply connected to these energies. And these energies are, I've been there, and you've been there too. You understand how ingrained it in their body, because when they need to draw the masculine energy, they face Imbambura, and they call that, and they work with it. And when they also do healing in the fields facing that mountain, and when they need the feminine energy, they go to the feminine mountain. And the story is that Kotakachi one night fell in love with Imbambura. The two mountains fell in love. I mean, they were seeing each other from the other side of the valley for so many years, and they had this relationship. And one night they fell in love, and as happen in when you fall in love, there's an explosion of emotions, right? So one night there was an explosion of the two mountains of falling in love, and they created Mohandita, that she's their daughter of the two mountains. So you have the father and the mother and the daughter creating the Valley of the Dawn. And I think that when you talk about sacred space, sacred places, this is a sacred place with their lore, with their stories, but mostly with the ability of the shamans in the area to draw energy from from those mountains, from those entities, into their daily practice, into their daily life. They talk about the mountain as father. They talk about the other mountain as a mother. They are associate those mountains into their daily family life.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it a sacred place. Sacred place is not a place that is just was born sacred. We have the need or the ability to relate to those places in such a sacred way. We create a sacredness.
Absolutely. I fully agree. And when I was there, what I realized was that this is a reciprocal relationship, isn't it? Whenever uh, they go to the mountain or they climb to the mountain, they bring to the mountains, no matter which mountain it is, they bring offerings with them. They do it in a ceremonial way.
Yes.
And they give something back, and they acknowledge and honor the energies they draw and embody from these places, right? So it's a completely different relationship. As you said, we create the sacredness through working with it, through honoring it, through being aware of the energies, through embodying them in a daily life and in our work. But we also need to give something back. Would you agree that this is?
Oh, absolutely. It is definitely a give and take relationship. It's a living relationship
Yeah,
between the space or the place and us.
yeah,
And you know, in I I published a book about the awakening part, which is a similar response to it because if I ask shamanic practitioners to many of them are well known that you all know, to write a little bit about their personal experience of awakening. And one of the shamans there, indigenous person, wrote me that he's very sorry, but he doesn't have one moment of awakening because in their tradition, every moment is sacred.
yeah,
Uh, and so this is I found it such a great teaching because we are waiting for a place to be sacred. We are waiting for a moment to be sacred. We are waiting for something to happen to us to make it sacred, to
mm,
make it awaken, to be awakened. But
mm,
it's all come from within us.
mm, mm,
We when we decide, for instance, one of the most uh, sacred place for me is I grew up in Israel on a mountain, and on the mountaintop there was one lone tree, and for many years uh, I always looked at that tree like that, and with the reverence or with I'm not quite sure exactly what I was so attracted to that one lone tree in that
yeah,
top of the mountain. That is a sacred tree for me.
yeah. I
um,
totally
and and
understand
I
that.
I use that in my art, in my fine art. I use that motif because it was so I had a emotional connection to that place, and I went there, visiting there, sitting under that tree on the top, overlooking all that valley,
Yeah,
and embody that energy of that tree within every part of me, of my soul, my spirit, my physical body. It is part of me.
yeah,
And so when I work, I also work with Imbabura, Cotacachi, and Mohanda, but I also added that mountain
yeah,
into my lexicon, into my calling of spirit.
yeah,
And I think that is kind of important for us in the West, not to just to automatically embedded those mountains in South America, but also to embedded sacred places that are dear to us,
yes,
that we are connected to, and that could be mountains, and that could be lakes, and that could be trees, and that could be any other physical places that have a special energy for us, that we can use that
yeah,
to ground to ourselves, to connect to our own power, to um, and not just imitate other people.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I think we all had experiences like this on that path. I mean, for me, for example, when I journey, I always go to a place which I encountered in South America. It was in South America, um, where I had a moment of absolute revelation, and something in me just understood. And it was a very, very steep cliff, which I climbed down. And looking back at it later on, I often thought, how did I climb that cliff? It really, you know, the chances that I would have fallen off that were quite high. But I climbed it with a kind of complete focus, loved every moment of it. And suddenly I had this feeling, this place really embodies something which resonates very deeply with me and gives me an insight into, I can only describe it as this sudden insight that absolutely everything is alive. And it wasn't a thought, you know, it was just suddenly a whole knowing. And that place has always been special for me ever since. And it's there in my vision. I can feel it. If I close my eyes, I can literally feel it. But with sacredness, it's wonderful that you said that, because I think one of the learnings when one walks the path we are walking, whatever path that is, one learns is that actually it turns the mundane into the sacred if we give it the focus and the attention, because we understand quite fully that as you said, every moment is sacred because it is life, and life itself is something which is sacred. No? And so every moment where life is happening in us, outside us, where we emerge ourselves into it, can be a sacred moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. Every
Maybe
moment is
should be
sacred.
a sacred moment. But
And I
coming
think,
back to what you said about the places where we are, and the sacredness of these places, you found your three, and I'm quite sure you have many more. Um, is there a call you feel that we need to bring this kind of knowing back? I mean, we here have an incredible amount of stone circles, for example,
Mhm.
especially down here where I live in Cornwall, because it's Celtic. So but many of those are just basically ignored, you know, because we are not embedded within that system any longer. And then we have the 2, 3 big ones, like Stonehenge is one of them, which are used for different purposes. They are money spinners now because they're tourist attractions, so they fenced off, and you can only get in by the busload. And yeah, you do. And do you feel that they are energy centers which would be worth focusing on to revive them so that more people can benefit from them? Because there is a slight movement here, very slight, which starts to revive these stone circles a bit.
Well, I think that it's important also to understand that when people come to a certain place, when they agree on a certain place and to come and celebrate and ceremonize in that one place, they bring their own energies. And each of us have energy imprints. And so when we are praying, let's say in Stonehenge or in the wall in Jerusalem, or in a cave in Brazil, in the Jaguar Cave. The cave itself may not be what we call special, but the energy that we bring there, and we do ceremonies there, that energy stay there.
Mm.
And that's what makes it sacred.
Mm.
So it is the combination, I think, of the physical place, the the power of that place itself, and then also the human factor, that we bring the energy there, and we keep that energy within that place, with that concentration of that intention that this place is holy or sacred, or a place where of worship, and that makes it part of our culture, part of our heritage, part of our ancestor, part of our connection to the earth, part of our connection to the cosmos. And that, I think, that is very important to celebrate. And I think that when we go back to those places, um, for instance, for me, that mountain near where my kibbutz is the same mountain that King Saul and was fighting with the Plishtim, with the at that time, not the Palestinians now, but it's
No,
the
no, no, I know.
Plishtim. It's the other it's the other uh, people there. So there's a it's written in the Bible, and there's a whole cultural around that. So for me, this is not just a mountain. This is a mountain where that was celebrated, that there were people fought over, that there is blood spilled over there. There's a history to that, and that little tree that is standing there, for me, it's like a memorial for all of that. That in spite all of that, there is a tree there that they grow on the top of that mountain, and
Yeah,
still keep
yeah,
growing and keep that
yeah,
tradition and the history together. So this is what I see in that tree. The tree itself may not be sacred, but it is the sacredness of all that history, ancestry, uh, that is symbolized in that tree, and I not worship it, but I definitely have a deep references
yeah.
to that.
Mm. I feel this is, and you expressed it very eloquently. What I kind of wanted to express is that, of course, certain places do have a power and energy field because they are steeped in history and in a certain history. Some of the stone circles here, for example, the Celtic circles, of course, they have been places of gathering, places of ceremonies, but also places of burials for our ancestors for many, many millennia, really, if we go far enough back. And you can almost feel that when you walk into those circles, that there is something there which is timeless and which has been, yes, created by humans, a kind of field which um, which resonates the moment you begin, or for me at least, the moment I touch one of these stones. They're usually guardian stones, and you walk through, and historically speaking or traditionally speaking, you say hi, you introduce yourself to the guardian. And the moment I walk through, something in me seems to open up to what is there, that kind of history and that ancestral reverence, and the ceremonies they held there and the feasting they did, because there's also a lot of joy in these places. No? You can kind of imagine people coming together from all over the British Isles once a year, you know and do something big. And it was usually a feast involved, you know. We know that archaeologically speaking. So with these places, what we find, and I mean, you have the same in the US and in South America, that they have been slightly neglected or even commercialized, or even worse, basically eradicated. But what I wanted to come to and look at, because you have quite a lot of experience with the Shuar and other people in the jungle. How do they, in your knowledge and in your experience, how do they honor that sacredness? Because for them, I do know, for them, the whole area around them has a kind of sacredness to it, because they revere nature and they pay close attention to it, and they are very connected with it.
Well, you know, they are nomads, so they moved around their territory quite often. So, and also when one person, the head of the family, dies, so they buried in the in the under the mud house, and then they moved to another location. So it is a society that is not uh, stayed in one place. It's not the city. So they move around. So their sacredness is the whole area. It's what we call territory. They don't look at it as a territory. They look at it as their motherland. And so we were just the last few years, I take my group to the Psychopai, or the Sequoia in the Amazon, and we went to visit their ancestral land, and it was a little bit close to my heart, because, you know, for us Jews, you know, Jerusalem was something that we always dreamed about. Even if we were in Europe or in other places, there was a prayer that one year we're going to go and live in Jerusalem. And then it's the same thing in the Psychopai or the Sequoia people, that they were taken off their land from when the war with Peru was there, between Ecuador and Peru, and then they moved to another location, which was easier for the government to control. So they have this desire to go back to their ancestral land. And so we went visiting there. It's 11 hours by canoe. We went up the river and we stayed there for a week or so. And you could see the joy. You could see that amazing energy that went into the tribe, into that family that went with us. It wasn't like a trip. It was a place. It was like it was like a uh, um, going into the holiest of the holiest.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about holiest, the holiest, we think about temple, like a church, like a something. But this is just not just, but this is an area full of lakes, beautiful, pure lakes with islands and fish and dolphins and crocodiles and all of those beautiful things that in their mythology, it represent all their mythology, they represent all their stories, the teachings, their dreams, that everything is connected with that beautiful area that is no longer theirs.
Yeah.
So for us, coming from the outside, it just looked like a really beautiful area, pristine, beautiful forest. For them, it's going home.
It's going home, isn't it? That was what's running through my mind when you were talking. They're going home.
Yes, and I think that the sacred places, they represent our home.
They do. I think that's exactly right. I think we touched on something really important here. The feeling is you're coming home. And this being home is you are embedded. It's you're part of it. It is part of you, and it is where you belong, isn't it? It's
Yes, and without belonging,
big.
there is without belonging, there is no identity.
No, there's no
Without
separation.
identity, we are nothing.
Yeah, yeah. And then we become this hollow thing, because I had one experience which felt very similar. I was in Antarctica, and this one in a lifetime trip, and I didn't expect what happened. But we were out there on the ice, and there was nothing. There was just snow and ice, and snow and ice, and snow and ice. And no more snow and more ice, and a few penguins, which are very gorgeous, but that's a different ballgame. And I walked and I walked, and I never understood before what it actually means to be completely and utterly outside civilization. Completely. And the most complete I have ever been outside, even on a vision quest somewhere, you still know there's civilization around you. But in Antarctica, you don't. Once you go in far enough, it is you and nature. And I had a moment there like this as well, this feeling of, coming home, of being one with whatever is, and then there is nothing. And that's the beauty, of course, about a space like this. There is nothing, no, except, and so it resonates inside, and the inside resonates out, and you suddenly get this nothingness, which is it's so freeing. You're completely free, because there's nothing you need to do and nothing you need to achieve and nowhere to go, and you're just there. And I could have sat there forever, well, frozen to death probably, but there was something quite, and this is a homecoming, isn't it? And this, I think, a deep longing in us is about coming home.
Of course.
We all have it. It is what drives us forward, and we get these glimpses during life, like you and I do, and we understand what it is. And so the places which provoke that in us can, of course, teach us that sacredness, don't they? They can teach us that this is what is sacred, is this being connected, being embedded, being part of it, being one with it. And we create the energy, and they give it back to us, and we create it, and they give it back. And yeah,
It's a beautiful experience that you had with the nothingness of space.
it's unbelievable.
Well,
It's absolute nothingness.
it's kind of similar to experience that I had on a trip to Sinai Desert many years ago, where we were in many ways nowhere.
Yeah.
It was just a straight line of sands to the
Sand can do the same. Yeah.
in the front, and then on the left and on the right and the back there was just all white, white, white,
Yeah.
white snow.
Yeah.
And I remember that moment because it was one of the moments where my soul was connected. I mean, I'm looking at it now in that way, because I held my breath, because it was so amazing moment that you feel that you're part of this large cosmos, that you're maybe a grain of of
That's
sand,
yeah,
but you are also part of this bigness, and the
yeah,
stars are so magnificent. Everything is so,
yeah,
you are connected. But
yeah.
I want to say that in in I was lucky to be born in that place on the kibbutz. You know, when we were young, I mean, it was such a remote place when I was born, because it was really not, kind of like nowhere. Uh,
Oh, yeah, one of those. Yeah,
but you know, we used to go and find Roman coins, and there was a mosaic floor um, from the fourth and fifth century, and there was like a, a storage halls in in the rocks and caves that we could feel that was used by the ancient people. And so we were new to that land, or I was new because I was just born there, but you could actually feel the history or the roots of humanity, of
mm,
people who lived there before you. It
mm,
was a continuation. It was not something that I moved into, or uh, I was not a clean slate. I was
yeah.
part of
You were part of it
an
already. Mm,
ancient civilization, that people live there, worship there, use that, and all.
yeah,
So that part makes that mountain and that
yeah,
area for me sacred. So it is a
yeah,
sacred space for me.
yeah. I fully understand that, and it's already loaded, isn't it? Um,
Yes,
I had, and I feel that is when we said before, it is what we do with these spaces, and you said, but it, of course, the longer the history and the deeper the history and the more people use these places in a sacred way and well, worship there or did their circles there or did their ceremonies there or prayed to their whatever it was there, the more loaded these places are already with the energies, and we can just sink into it and we feel them, and that's, for me, that is one of the most important reasons why um, we are kind of called, and I think now more than ever, to preserve those places. I'm looking at what's happening in some of Australia, some of the Aboriginal paintings, you know. I mean, these stories and these places are really loaded with energy of some of the oldest people in the world. And um, to kind of pretend that this doesn't take a long time to build these kind of fields, no? And that's why they are important. And I feel as important as understanding that everything can be sacred depending on how we deal with it.
sure.
Are
But
we?
I think that it comes in a time now that we are, as a society, we are more globalized around internet, pop culture, and in many ways there's a force almost to disconnect us from the past,
Yeah.
to have a more of a plastic culture, artificial culture,
Mm.
to kind of unify us, um, and globalize us
Yeah.
as one tribe. And the other side of it is what we do is going back into the roots of humanity. I mean, to show that each person has roots, and has a different community and different traditions, and it's okay. It's good to have. It's we don't need to we don't need to be one tribe. We can be many tribes that are
Yeah.
connected with as a whole.
Yeah.
instead of trying to make everybody unified. And
Mm,
I think that that is very important by celebrating sacred spaces or places is to celebrate what yours is
mm,
without feeling that you are not part of the big globalized society, a
mm.
unified under Disney type of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Or French fries. Yeah. No,
Exactly.
I'm really, I mean, that makes so much sense to me that it, and I think this is the where we are as societies anyway. It's this fine balance, isn't it, between tribal and global and tribal and global, and that's also where the tension lies,
Exactly.
which we
Exactly.
can see politically speaking and otherwise. No? That we because we need to be a global society and we need our tribal identity more than we ever needed it to become more rooted again, to become more centered again in who we are as kind of humans. Mm,
Yes, because each culture bring such a diversity of languages, of idioms, of cultures, of
mm,
sensitivities, of food, of art, of
mm.
and that's what makes it make our society, our global society, richer.
Yeah,
If we all going to speak English and if we all going to eat French fries, uh, we would be lacking so much of the richness of this universe. And
mm,
so each tribe or each family, where they have their own sacred space and all sacred language and sacred customs and cultures, can contribute to the whole
yeah,
instead of annihilating or demolishing all those indigenous cultures and languages.
yeah,
It's a
absolutely. I
gift.
agree.
It's a gift that we have
Mm,
because it's enriching our society. So Imbambura and Kotakachi and Mohanda and their stories and their healing,
mm.
it's not just it is rooted in their cultures, but it can also enrich our culture.
Oh, absolutely. Because of course, it does anyway, no? Because it's one of the web. And if we take one out, we leave a little hole. But also because we are all learning still. I mean, for me, the learning I can still get from people who are very rooted and have been for so long is still quite strong. It really is because they. I remember that story. I don't know if you know it. You know that story where the chief of the tribe, who had taken one pass in their hunting for ever and ever, and suddenly they change direction and they use another path. And there's a guy there, and he asks the chief, "So why are you using a different path suddenly?" And the chief says, "Oh, because the past told us so." And the man is very confused and says, "How can the past tell you?" And the chief says to him, "Have a look at the flowers, they are not coming back.
Oh.
You have trodden on that path too long. You can trot on a path for a long, long time, and plants will still grow. But at one point, they need time alone without your feet stepping on them to come back." And it's these little things where I just think, I wouldn't have come up with the idea, to observe nature like this and
Mhm.
get my guidance from it. If this is the best path to the hunting ground, I would have used it forever. you know. And
Mhm.
it's these kind of learnings, aren't they? Which we can still get from people who are so connected. And
Yes.
it's coming back to those mountains we were starting off with.
Yeah, I wanted to say that the danger of the plastic society is that that even the people who lives with Imbabura, Kotakachi, and Mohanda, the son and daughter of those people who are the shamans of the Tamayos and the Pinedas and others,
I know.
that there is so much pressure from our society. Is that because of our society pressure, many of the people in Ecuador, and I'm sure are all around the world, they want to be like us.
Yeah,
They want to have the same American
yeah,
dream,
yeah,
and they lose the connection
yeah,
to their sacred places,
yeah,
to the sacred. They don't understand why they have to face Imbabura, Kotakachi, Mohandita and make those prayers.
yeah.
And I think that that's the danger of our society, that we are trying to meld everybody to be the same, to see the same movies, the same, sing
Mm.
the same songs and dance the same dances. I think that that's the danger of all of it. That I mean, I think that by celebrating sacred places, or uh, by doing this shamanic work, it's reconnecting us to the core of our ancestral and who we are. And that's what we also what I try to do in Ecuador is, by taking people on trips there and doing the Andy Summit, is to show them that there is interest in the Western world, in their true tradition, and they also can make money and make a living of it. And when they understand, and I have a few samples, the grandsons of the Tamayos and the Pinedas and Maria Juana,
Mm.
they are devoting themselves because they know that they can actually make a living. They don't have to go and work as a bank tailors or website designers and computer engineers. They can actually do the ancient work.
Oh, wonderful. I
But
never
we need,
thought
but
about
we need,
it like this. Mm.
but we need to show them that uh, there, we spoke earlier that shamanic work is practical work.
Yeah,
It, that there is a value that we
yeah,
give value to those
yeah,
ancient places. And we give value to their ancient tradition, to their knowledge of healing and remedies, and their tradition. That it's not just that we appreciate that, but that we actually put money,
yeah,
value,
yeah,
so they can make a living.
yeah.
They don't have to sell their soul and forget their tradition. But I think that it's important in the concept of sacred places to understand that sacred places are only from what we are putting in them.
Into them.
And
Yeah,
when we stop that, they become just mountains.
yeah,
They become just obstacles. We can go and do cut roads in them. We can cut them, diminish them, and whatever. So I think that it's important for us, for as educators, as teachers, to bring that knowledge back. The importance of our connection to those places as a way to really save, or try to save, humanity.
And I think on this note, it's like, thank you ever so much.
You're
It was,
welcome.
as always, amazing to talk to you and appreciate your insights, your knowing and knowledge, your big heart.